Bar for Bar album reviews. Isaiah Rashad, The House is Burning. The House is Burning is the latest album from Chattanooga rapper Isaiah Rashad. This album has been a long time coming, with it releasing a whole 5 years after his last project, The Sun's Tirade. As The Sun's Tirade and Cilvia demo are some of my favorite projects of all time, my expectations were pretty high for this project, and I'd have to say they were definitely met. Before I get too into the review, I'm trying something different with my reviews for now, mostly in an attempt to make things a little bit more streamlined. So if you have watched my reviews in the past where I go track by track, let me know which one you prefer, because I want to try something new, but also have to see what y'all like too. Getting back to the review, in the artist notes from Apple Music, he mentions that this is hopefully the start of something new, and there'll be no more 5-year gaps. Whether that's going to be true is yet to be seen, but seeing the space that he's in now, at least based off of interviews and such, it sounds believable. With this project, Isaiah Rashad aimed to hone in and update sounds that he grew up on, which includes Texas and Louisiana bounce music, as well as neo-soul, and I feel like he did a good job of it. Regarding the title of the album, the house here could be a handful of things, I feel. It could be his mind, it could be the world around him, and, I mean, if you want to really reach for it, it could be this house of fans and followers that he's built up over his career so far. That one's, like I said, a bit of a stretch, but I feel like there's so many possibilities, and we get bits and pieces of that kind of sprinkled throughout the lyrics, but in the end, it kind of comes down to our own interpretation of it until he says specifically what it is. The album begins with the track Dark Side, which I feel does good to catch the listener up to where Zay's been without beating you over the head with it. The chorus, What am I supposed to do outside but get rich, sounds hard, but it's even harder when you take into consideration where he's been. You could assume he's speaking from the point of time in his life when he left rehab and now he's back outside. He's basically saying, well, I'm back out now, might as well get to it. And this sort of energy, even though this is a bit more mellow of a track, carries on into the next track from The Garden with Lil Uzi Vert. Here we get a really hard-hitting instrumental combined with Zay yelling, came out bussin', which almost sounds like he's kind of being self-aware that he knew this track was going to be early on in the album and that he just had to come hard with it. We also get, in my mind, what's a follow-up to R.I.P. Kevin Miller with R.I.P. Young, which also for some reason in my mind always throws me off. It makes me think it's going to be playing Headshots instead, but maybe it's just like the beats are just similar enough. But I don't have a whole lot to say about this track other than it was dope and I enjoyed it, but I also really liked how it led into Lay With Ya with that skit at the end. As far as Lay With Ya, when the rollout began with it, I felt like there was some concern that Zay wouldn't be bringing us the same sort of energy when it comes to rapping as he had in the past. With this track, Duke Deuce really shined, whereas Zay kind of hung back a little bit, which may have thrown some people off because it's the whole, how are you letting a feature one-up you sort of thing. That is a trend that we see on many of the tracks, however it does feel intentional, and I mean the bit where he's kind of hanging back and not necessarily trying to out-rap his feature. At least that's what I felt. On the many notes from Apple Music regarding this album, he mentions how he felt certain artists really fit the mood or that he thought they'd sound good on that song. So it's almost like he put these songs together with other artists in mind, and he just so happened to be on the track as well. Like, he almost wanted them to shine on purpose. It's at this point in the album where the energy starts to dip a little bit, only really picking up for Hey Mr. Chad and 9-3 Freestyle. But that's not a bad thing. A lot of these slower songs are the type of songs that I really do like from Isaiah Rashad, because they're way more vibey and chill, so they match my energy a bit more. The only downside I could say to these tracks is that they may sound kind of similar for some people, or you may not necessarily pay as much attention to them because they're just so chill, I guess. So it could be harder to get what's being said there. This also could be due to how I feel some of the songs were mixed, where it's kind of like Zay is at the same level or lower than the instrumental. However, I do think that was intentional because it's like he's become one with the track and he's using his voice and flow as an instrument, if that makes sense. Like I alluded to earlier, the features make a lot of sense on this project in terms of like they fit well on that song. Obviously, we've already talked briefly about Uzi and Duke Deuce, but everyone else here really killed their contribution. Smino on Claymore just came in so smooth, and honestly, I just forget that he raps like that sometimes. And I was just like, oh, okay, that's what we're getting. And then both J-Rock and Jay Worthy just slid on True Story. And with J-Rock, I feel like people forget that he can rap, but he's also very versatile. Like J-Rock has this super gruff and aggressive voice. At least that's kind of the idea of him that a lot of people have. But on this one, he's just like, he toned it down just a little bit and just went in. And then Jay Worthy, like I don't listen to him as much, but this is a good reminder that he's dope as well. And then, of course, on score, SZA and Black just made it such a beautiful song. And like part of me was just like, this really just sounds like a SZA song or a Black song, because again, Zay was kind of mixed a little bit lower, but like I also mentioned, that was probably intentional. As the album begins to wrap up, we get some final notes of introspection from Zay with The House is Burning, the title track, and HB2U, which we can assume to be Happy Birthday to You. With The House is Burning, he's pretty open about his addictions and some of the side effects of them, which is primarily paranoia. You could make the argument that him saying, "Who's that creeping in my window?" is him looking into the house of his mind, seeing himself while under the influence and just like trying to understand it. Almost like an out-of-body experience, but while you're under the influence. So it's like maybe even harder to process or easier, who knows. With the beginning of HBTU, we get him questioning life and his motives, like for why he's doing these things. And that then transitions to an outro that gets even more slurred. It's like all these thoughts in his mind, like he had to kind of silence them in some way. And to do so, he just took more drugs. And then him saying, "This ain't as hard as it gets, but I'm still on drugs." That kind of reminds you like he's in a better place now, but he still falls back on the drugs at times, or he just does it recreationally and has a better handle on it. There's a few ways I feel you can interpret this. Overall, this album was dope. It may be a bit different from what we got on Cilvia Demo and The Sun's Tirade, and it might be like a bit different in terms of full project, let's say, but I feel like every track has given us bits and pieces of Isaiah Rashad, which also kind of attributes to the title, The House is Burning. There's all these bits and pieces of the house, and they're all trying to like come out. And Isaiah Rashad is like just trying to capture them and encapsulate them in some way to give to us. The only critiques, in my opinion, would be the ones that I feel like most people have, which is that the features tend to be the focus and that the mixing made it a little bit harder to hear and understand them. But also, like I mentioned, those were probably intentional. We do have proof of the former in what Zay said about particular tracks being perfect for certain artists, which, we can assume to translate over to a lot of the other songs that weren't mentioned. With the latter, though, I think that's just a conscious decision that they made to add more to the vibe and feeling of this album. With Isaiah Rashad's music, he tends to be open about things, but he does it in a way that's not necessarily super easy to pick up on. And sometimes you don't really pick up on it for many, many listens. For me, a lot of the meaning comes from listening multiple times and finding my own meaning in it, which may not be the meaning that he intended, but maybe this is an intention too. But with that, I do hope you're able to figure out what it means to you as well. My favorite songs are R.I.P. Young, Claymore, Headshots, What You Said, and Score, although as I've been listening to it, I find that I enjoy different songs at different times, so this list is ever-changing. Like the notes from Apple Music said, hopefully we don't have to wait another 5 years for Isaiah Rashad to drop again, but we'll have to wait and see. From a business and career standpoint, it's probably beneficial to not let that happen. But he still came out with a really dope album that charted, which is insane, so the fans are definitely okay with waiting. I do hope we get some higher energy tracks with whatever drop is next, in the same vein kind of as Park or Modest, but again, we'll just have to wait and see. With that said, that's all I have for this review. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this album and what your favorite tracks are. Also, let me know again if you like this review style more or the track by track one. I'm open. Also, like and subscribe if you want to see more reviews and content like this. Thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.